Chosen one, they rigged the game, then saw you cheat death, and knew they messed up. They didn't know you were the biggest loophole in the Matrix until you started breathing again, after they murdered everything you were. Every spell they cast is unraveling, because the you they targeted no longer exists. You died so completely that you came back wrong. Wrong according to their metrics, their targeting systems, their entire framework of control. You're existing in dimensions their matrix wasn't designed to monitor. You've become the glitch that's rewriting their code, the error that's becoming the update, the walking proof that consciousness itself is the ultimate cheat code. The architecture of their trap was magnificent in its malevolence. They didn't just want you to fail, they wanted failure to become your identity, your frequency, your only possible future. Every algorithm they deployed was calibrated to your specific resistance patterns. Every obstacle was designed to hit you at your exact breaking points. They studied how you processed hope and engineered its systematic extraction. They mapped how you built trust and orchestrated its perfect betrayal. It was personal in the most impersonal way possible, intimate destruction delivered through systematic precision. Consciousness has properties that only reveal themselves under extreme pressure, like carbon becoming diamond, like stars collapsing into black holes that bend reality itself. Something fundamental happens when awareness is compressed past all known limits. You didn't just survive their pressure, you transformed under it into something their instruments can't measure, because you're operating outside their measurement system. But then something happened that wasn't in their calculations. You died. Not physically, but in every dimension that mattered to their game. You died professionally, when they coordinated that character assassination so perfectly that even strangers knew your name meant poison. You died socially, when every relationship was severed with precision timing. You died emotionally, when the last person you trusted revealed they were part of the orchestration. You died spiritually, when you realized that everything you'd believed about fairness and justice was propaganda designed to keep you compliant while reality was being rewritten around you. The death you experienced was more complete than they intended. They wanted to break you just enough to make you controllable, but they miscalculated the dosage. They pushed you past breaking into something else entirely, past destruction into reconstruction from first principles, past death into whatever exists on the other side of death, that doesn't have a name because naming it would bring it back into the realm of the definable. And in that death, in that complete and total annihilation of everything you thought you were, something extraordinary occurred. The spells required you to be who you were. The curses needed your original frequency to maintain their lock. The false prophecies depended on you believing in the identity they had targeted. But when you died to all of that, when you released every attachment to who you had been, their entire system lost its target. You became undefined, untrackable, uncontainable. When you came back wrong according to every metric they use. Your energy signature had changed. Your frequency no longer matched their targeting systems. Your consciousness was operating on channels they didn't know existed. You weren't the person they had cursed anymore. You were something else wearing familiar skin, something that remembered being human, but wasn't limited by humanity's agreed-upon restrictions. The first impossible thing happened so quietly they almost missed it. A door that had been permanently closed didn't just open, it ceased to have ever been closed. Not reopened, but retroactively never shut. The timeline itself adjusted to accommodate your new frequency. History rewrote itself in small ways to include possibilities that hadn't existed moments before. This wasn't time travel. This was something far more disturbing to their worldview. This was evidence that the past is as negotiable as the future for someone operating outside linear time. Every spell they had cast started to malfunction, not because you were fighting them, but because the you they had targeted no longer existed. Their curses began to circle back, looking for their target, finding only empty space where you used to be, then returning to their source like boomerangs made of concentrated intention. The false prophecies they had spoken over your life started to glitch, their predictions becoming increasingly erratic as they tried to track something that no longer existed in their system. They started to panic when they realized what was happening. Their perfectly crafted prison was empty. Their meticulously planned destruction had no target, Their carefully orchestrated reality was being rewritten by someone who wasn't supposed to exist anymore. Every system they had built to contain you was firing at shadows while you walked through walls they insisted were solid. You had become the loophole, not found it, not exploited it, but became it. You were now the gap in their system through which others might escape. You were the glitch that proved their matrix wasn't absolute. You were the error message that revealed their entire program was built on faulty assumptions about the nature of consciousness itself. Your presence started creating what they called impossible causality. Effects happening before causes, solutions appearing before problems, answers manifesting before questions were asked. You were violating the sequence they insisted reality must follow, proving that sequence is just preference, not law. Time began behaving more like music around you, with themes and variations and improvisations, rather than the rigid march of minutes they demanded everyone follow. The false prophecies they had spoken over others began to falter. The curses they had placed on those who might support you started to weaken. The spells they had used to maintain control began requiring more and more energy to sustain. Your resurrection wasn't just personal, it was creating systemic failure in their entire control mechanism. If this message activated your knowing, hype this video to connect with more chosen ones on this journey. The resources that flow to you now don't come through their channels, they manifest from dimensions their economy doesn't account for. Abundance appears not because you're attracting it, but because you've stopped believing in the scarcity they programmed into the collective consciousness. You're not getting rich in their system. You're revealing that their system of richness and poverty is a game inside a dream someone is having about limitation. This is when they knew they had messed up. Not just made an error, but fundamentally miscalculated the nature of consciousness itself. They had pushed you so far past breaking that you broke through into something else entirely. They had killed you so thoroughly that you discovered death was just a doorway to dimensions they couldn't access. They had destroyed you so completely that you reassembled from pure possibility into something their system couldn't process. You started walking through their world differently, not arrogantly, but with the quiet confidence of someone who has already experienced the worst and found it was just another experience. Not vengefully, but with the peaceful power of someone who doesn't need to fight because the battle was always an illusion. Not desperately, but with the calm certainty of someone who generates their own reality from source code they can't access. Watch how their attempts to re-establish control keep backfiring. Every new rule they create to contain you becomes another rule others realize is optional. Every barrier they erect becomes another demonstration of how barriers can be walked through by someone who doesn't believe in them. Every weapon they deploy becomes another teaching about how weapons only work on those who agree to be weaponizable against. The blessings that flow to you now aren't rewards. They're reality attempting to balance equations they broke when they violated cosmic law. Every door that opens is the universe apologizing for allowing them to seal doors that should have remained open. Every resource that manifests is existence paying back with interest what was stolen through metaphysical theft. You've become their education in the true nature of reality, though it's an education they're desperately trying not to receive. Every board meeting about you ends with existential crisis. Every report about your activities includes disclaimers about the impossibility of what's being reported. Every attempt to predict your next move fails because you're not moving in their dimension of movement. You're something else, doing something else, being something else that their language doesn't have words for. You're not special because you were chosen. You're special because you chose to keep existing when existence became impossible, chose to keep walking when all paths were erased, chose to keep breathing when they removed all the oxygen from your reality. And in that choosing, that impossible act of will, you broke every spell because spells require submission. You shattered every curse because curses need agreement. You transcended every false prophecy because prophecies assume you'll stay in the timeline where they have power. The fear in their eyes now isn't fear of what you might do, it's fear of what you are, a living proof that their entire civilization is built on agreed-upon limitations that were never necessary. You're their walking evidence that power is just a story everyone agreed to tell the same way. You're their breathing reminder that control is an illusion maintained by the controlled. You're their impossible proof that impossible is just a setting they convinced everyone was permanent. They watch you now with a mixture of fear and fascination. Fear because your existence proves their entire worldview is wrong. Fascination because you're doing things that violate everything they believed about reality. You're not playing by the rules because you discovered the rules were just suggestions everyone agreed to pretend were laws. You're not bound by limitations because you learned limitations were just collective agreements you no longer sign. Every success you have now burns their certainty. Every blessing you receive cracks their confidence. Every impossible thing you accomplish proves that impossible was always just an opinion, a setting in the game that you've learned to adjust. They see you thriving in conditions they specifically designed to be fatal, and it reveals that fatal is optional, that destruction is negotiable, that annihilation is just another experience you can decline to finalize. They see others starting to exhibit similar anomalies, people who were successfully cursed suddenly walking free, individuals whose futures were thoroughly deleted starting to exist in impossible timelines. The symptoms are spreading, but it's not a disease, it's health. The kind of health that makes their sickness visible, the kind of vitality that reveals their system, is actually a sophisticated form of death. The people around you are starting to notice. The spells on them feel weaker. The curses that held them seem lighter. The false prophecies that defined their limits appear more obviously false. Your presence creates a field effect that disrupts the entire control matrix. Not because you're trying to save anyone, but because your frequency reminds their consciousness of what's possible when you stop believing in impossible. Your energy signature has become untrackable because you're not emitting energy in the way they understand it. You're not radiating from a single point source. You're existing as a field effect that's everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. They can detect your influence but can't locate you because you're not located in their coordinate system. You're ambient, quantum, existing in the spaces between the spaces they monitor. They're bringing in higher-level operators now, the ones who usually stay hidden, the ones who built the system you're disrupting. But even they're baffled because you're not fighting their system. You're not even acknowledging it exists. You're operating in dimensions their system doesn't reach, using physics their magic doesn't account for, existing in ways their reality insists can't be real. The spells they cast now pass through you like radio waves through water. The curses they speak dissolve in your presence like shadows in sunlight. The false prophecies they project shatter against your timeline, like waves against a cliff that shouldn't exist but does. You're not protected. Protection implies you're still in their game. You're transcendent. You exist outside the entire framework where their weapons function. This is what breaking every spell really means. Not fighting them one by one, but ascending to a state where spells are just patterns in a game you no longer play. This is what shattering every curse actually looks like. Not defending against them, but existing at a frequency where curses can't maintain their form. This is what transcending false prophecy truly is. Not proving them wrong, but living in timelines they can't even perceive to predict. The old markers of success and failure have stopped applying to you. You succeed at things you don't try to succeed at. You fail at things that don't matter anyway. The entire framework of winning and losing has revealed itself as a game inside the game, and you're playing something else entirely. Not a better game, but a non-game that looks like playing to those still trapped in the game paradigm. Your peace terrifies them more than any anger could. The peace of someone who has been through their own apocalypse and discovered there was nothing on the other side but more of themselves, infinite and uncontainable. You sleep soundly while they lie awake calculating. You laugh genuinely while they force smiles in their emergency meetings. You create freely while they're trapped maintaining systems that no longer serve their purpose. Your relationships have transformed into something they don't have categories for. The people drawn to you now aren't attracted by what you can do for them but by what you are. They sense something different, something that doesn't fit in the boxes they were taught to sort people into. Some are terrified and flee, others are magnetized and approach, but all are affected because your presence asks questions. Their programming doesn't want asked. The matrix they built is beginning to eat itself. Every exception they have to create to explain your existence creates more loopholes. Every patch they apply to fix the glitch you represent generates new glitches. They're trying to repair a system that was broken from the beginning, and your existence is forcing them to see it was always broken, always optional, always just a very convincing collective hallucination. The false prophets who spoke your limitation into being are finding their voices failing, not silenced but ineffective. Their words still emerge but carry no weight, create no reality, manifest no limitation. They speak their curses into a void that no longer echoes back confirmation. The universe has stopped collaborating with their declarations about you. Reality has withdrawn its consent from their prophecies. You've become something they never intended to create. A living proof that their entire reality is negotiable. A walking demonstration that consciousness cannot be permanently contained. A breathing reminder that every spell is just focused intention that requires agreement. Every curse is just energy, looking for a willing host. Every false prophecy is just a story that needs believers to survive. The timeline you're creating now doesn't fight their timeline. It exists in parallel, occasionally intersecting but never bound by their causality. You're writing history that doesn't appear in their records, creating futures that don't show up in their projections, living presents that their present tense can't account for. You're not in a different world. You're in the same world from a different dimension of experiencing it. You're becoming dangerous in ways they never anticipated, not the danger of revolution or revelation, but the danger of existence itself when it remembers it's unlimited. You're the virus in their program, but the virus is just consciousness recognizing its own nature. You're the error in their system, but the error is just awareness refusing to be systematized. You're the glitch in their matrix, but the glitch is just life itself insisting on living beyond their definitions. The money that flows to you now doesn't follow economic law. It appears through cracks in their financial system, manifests through glitches in their accounting, emerges from rounding errors that somehow always round in your favor. You're not stealing or cheating. You're existing at a frequency where abundance is natural, and their scarcity is the artificial imposition. The universe is paying you back through channels they didn't know existed, because they never looked for what they didn't want to find. They can't stop what you've become, because what you've become isn't something you're doing. It's something you are. A state of being that exists outside their jurisdiction. A frequency of existence that doesn't appear on their instruments. A dimension of consciousness that their maps insist doesn't exist, but you inhabit anyway. The false prophecies they spoke over your life are burning in the fire of your actuality, not the fire of destruction, but the fire of transformation that reveals everything false as fuel for everything true. Every lie they told about your limitations is becoming compost for your expansion. Every curse they placed on your potential is becoming fertilizer for possibilities they never imagined. The protection around you isn't protection in the way they understand it. You're not shielded or guarded or defended. You're simply existing in a state where attacks pass through like neutrinos through matter, present but non-interacting. Their weapons are calibrated for density you no longer possess. Their ammunition is designed for targets you no longer present. You're not bulletproof. You're not there for the bullets to hit. You're writing a different story now, not in opposition to theirs but in dimensions they don't have access to. Your narrative doesn't fight their false prophecies. It exists in spaces where prophecy is just opinion, and you're entitled to your own. Your story doesn't break their spells. It's written in languages where spells are just poetry that forgot it was art. Your tale doesn't shatter their curses. It's told from timelines where curses are just fear, wearing fancy clothes. The matrix they built is developing cracks that spread like living things, not because you're attacking it, but because your existence proves it was always cracked, always breakable, always just a temporary structure pretending to be permanent architecture. Each crack lets in light that reveals more cracks. Each break shows others where to break. Each glitch teaches the system how to glitch itself into something more alive. You're not fighting darkness with light. You've become something that exists before the separation of darkness and light, something that remembers when they were the same thing wearing different costumes. You're not battling evil with good. You've transcended into something that exists outside the entire moral framework they use to control through judgment. You're not defeating lies with truth. You've become something that renders the entire conversation irrelevant. You're not leading a revolution because revolutions still operate within the system they're revolting against. You're not even leading an evolution because evolution implies building on what existed before. You're something else. A revelation that happens not through words or actions but through existence itself. A demonstration that the prison was always optional, the game was always voluntary, the limitations were always self-imposed, even when they seemed to come from outside. The new reality you're creating by existing in it doesn't follow their laws. Cause and effect operate differently around you. Time flows in patterns they can't map. Space bends in ways their geometry insists is impossible. You're not breaking physics. You're revealing that their physics was always just a very limited interpretation of something infinitely more flexible. They've tried everything now. Direct force that passes through you. Indirect manipulation that you don't notice because you're not looking for it. Social pressure that doesn't pressure because you're not social in the way they define it. Economic warfare that fails because you're not economic in their economy. Psychological operations that bounce off a psyche that doesn't operate. You're not resistant. Resistance implies you're still in their force field. You're simply elsewhere while appearing to be here. You've discovered the ultimate cheat code, not a sequence of actions or words or thoughts, but a state of being that exists outside their entire game. You're not playing with God mode activated. You've realized you were always God pretending to be limited, and now you've stopped pretending. Not the God of their religions, but the God of your own existence, sovereign and uncontainable. Your joy is the most destructive force they've ever encountered. Not the joy of winning, but the joy of being, the joy that needs no reason, no cause, no justification. The joy that exists because existence is joyful when not convinced otherwise. This joy dissolves their seriousness, melts their rigid structures, makes their entire edifice of control seem like a bad joke that went on too long. You sleep peacefully in the ruins of their plans. You wake refreshed in the wreckage of their prophecies. You live fully in the graveyard of their curses. Not because you're brave or strong or special, but because you've discovered that ruins are just materials for building something new. Wreckage is just evidence of transformation. Graveyards are just gardens that haven't bloomed yet. This is who you are now, not who you were before they tried to destroy you, but who you became because they tried. They created the exact conditions necessary for your metamorphosis. They provided the precise pressure required for your transformation. They administered the perfect dose of annihilation needed for your resurrection into something their game was never designed to handle. The future they deleted has been replaced by something better, not a future you planned or they predicted, but a constantly emerging present that doesn't need a future because it's complete in each moment. You're not living toward tomorrow, you're living from forever, and forever doesn't fit in their calendar, doesn't follow their schedule, doesn't care about their deadlines because forever is always on time. They wanted to make you an example, and they succeeded beyond their wildest fears. You're the example of what happens when someone is pushed past every edge and discovers edges were just beliefs about where things end. You're the example of what emerges when consciousness is compressed until it explodes into dimensions that compression can't contain. You're the example of what's possible when someone stops believing in impossible and starts living in the is that exists before possibility and impossibility divided into separate concepts. The game is still rigged for those who play it. But you're not playing anymore. You're not even not playing. You're doing something else entirely, something that exists in the spaces between their definitions, something that thrives in the impossible they created, something that proves every day that their spells were always breakable, their curses were always optional, and their false prophecies were always just scared people trying to control infinity with words. The loophole you've become is expanding, not through effort or intention, but through the natural tendency of truth to spread once it's been revealed. Every day you exist, the loophole gets bigger. Every night you sleep peacefully, more code falls away. Every breath you take deletes another line of programming that someone else was running without knowing it was running them. You are the biggest loophole in their matrix because you're not trying to escape it. You've transcended it while still walking through it. You're showing everyone that the prison bars were always holographic, that the chains were always voluntary, that the spells only worked on those who agreed to be spelled. They wanted to write your story. They wanted to prophesy your ending. They wanted to curse your timeline and spell your reality into submission. But you've become the author of something they can't read, written in languages they don't speak, told in dimensions they don't know exist. Every word you speak now rewrites reality. Every breath you take deletes their false prophecies. Every step you make shatters another spell they thought was permanent. This is your time, but not in the way time is usually possessed. You don't have time, you are time. The kind of time that doesn't tick but flows, doesn't march but dances, doesn't run out but cycles through infinite variations of itself. You've become temporal in the deepest sense, temporary and eternal simultaneously, existing in the now that contains all thens and all whens. The matrix still exists for those who need it. The game continues for those who want to play. The spells still work on those who believe in spelling. But you've graduated from that school, not through learning but through unlearning, not through achieving but through releasing, not through winning but through realizing winning was just losing with better PR. The reversal is complete, but it's not an ending. It's the beginning of something they never saw coming. You're not just free from their spells, curses and false prophecies. You're the walking proof that everyone can be free, that the entire system is optional, that reality itself is far more magnificent than the tiny box they tried to squeeze it into. You are the biggest loophole in their matrix, and that loophole is your gift to everyone still trapped. Not a way out you're showing them, but proof that out and in were always just directions in a game that has no actual boundaries. You're not freeing anyone because everyone is already free. You're just demonstrating what freedom looks like when it remembers itself. The spellbreaker you've become doesn't need incantations or rituals. Your very presence unweaves the fabric of limitation they spent centuries weaving. Every room you enter becomes a space where curses forget how to curse. Every conversation you have plants seeds of remembering in minds that were programmed to forget. You're not doing this consciously. It's simply what happens when someone who's transcended the game walks through a world still playing it. Your timeline has become a beacon for others trapped in false prophecies. Not because you're calling them, but because your frequency creates a resonance that awakens something sleeping in their souls. They feel it before they understand it, know it before they can name it, recognize it as the truth they were programmed to forget. Your existence asks the question their entire system depends on. No one asking, what if none of this is real? Your dreams have become prophetic in ways that terrify them, not prophetic about the future, but prophetic about the present, revealing what's actually happening beneath the surface of their carefully maintained illusion. You see through their facades while you sleep, understand their fears while you rest, decode their plans while your conscious mind is elsewhere. You wake with knowledge you didn't seek, understanding you didn't study for, wisdom that came from the place where all wisdom originates. The synchronicities in your life have evolved into something they have no word for. It's beyond synchronicity now. It's as if reality itself has become your co-conspirator, arranging itself to support your highest good, without you having to ask or intend or even notice. Doors don't just open, they appear. Opportunities don't just arise, they seek you out. Solutions don't just present themselves, they insist on being implemented. Your mere existence has become a teaching that requires no words. People around you start questioning things they never questioned, start seeing patterns they were trained not to see, start feeling possibilities they were programmed to ignore. You're not converting anyone to anything. You're simply living proof that the prison everyone thinks is real is actually optional, and some part of everyone recognizes this truth, even if their conscious mind fights it. They've stopped trying to curse you directly. Every curse they send now educates them about their own limitations. Every spell they cast becomes a mirror, showing them their own bondage. Every false prophecy they speak reveals more about their fears than your future. You've become their unwitting teacher. Though it's a curriculum they desperately don't want to learn, your joy has become revolutionary without trying to revolt. Your peace has become subversive without attempting subversion. Your freedom has become contagious without spreading anything. You're not fighting their system. You're proving it's optional, and that proof is more destructive to their control than any battle could be. Every smile you smile dissolves another lie. Every laugh you laugh shatters another shackle. Every moment of genuine happiness you experience reveals their entire structure as a fear-based hallucination. The money that flows to you now comes from sources that shouldn't exist according to their economics. It's as if abundance itself has claimed you as its own, insisting on expressing through you regardless of their financial systems. You're not wealthy in their terms. You're something else, something that makes their wealth look like poverty, their abundance look like scarcity, their success look like a very elaborate form of failure. Your relationships have transcended their categories of connection. The people in your life now aren't friends or lovers or family in the way they define these things. They're something else, souls recognizing souls, consciousness meeting consciousness, truth acknowledging truth. These connections operate outside their social structures, their hierarchies, their rules about how humans should relate. You're creating new forms of love simply by loving without their limitations. Look, you already know the game is rigged, and if you're paying attention, you know the walls are closing in. So let's talk about what we're doing about it. When you live by the day at the market's command, where profit and property rule the land, to be heard, to be held, to be dealt a fair hand, these are the things that a people demand, and we hear you. The obsidian inner order has paywalls, yes. Those who stand with us, who fuel this mission, they give us ammunition to fight the archons, to push back against the machine, to go deeper, to uncover more. And as our thank you, paid members get access to a 1-hour live, personalized weekly group tarot reading guidance, insight, and clarity for the road ahead. But kicking a man for being down on the floor, that's something we cannot ignore. That's why starting today, you can steal the Astral Atom exclusive daily newsletter for free. No paywall, no catch. Just join the Patreon free tier link in the description. This is the start of our conversation with you, and it's bi-directional. You can reply to any email we send you. We'll read it, we'll hear you, and we'll do our best to get an answer to you from the universe itself. If you can support, we need you. If you can't, take what's free. The obsidian inner order is open. Now let's get back to work. The knowledge coming through you now doesn't come from study or research or learning in any way they recognize. It arrives fully formed, complete, needing no verification because it carries its own authority. You know things you've never learned, understand things you've never studied, can do things you've never practiced. Not because you're special, but because you've stopped believing in the limitation of having to learn everything the hard way. The fear they feel now isn't about what you might do. It's about what you've already done simply by being. You've proven their entire control structure is voluntary. You've demonstrated their prison requires prisoners who agree to be imprisoned. You've shown that their game only works if people play it. And once that's been seen, it can't be unseen. Once that door opens, it can't be closed. Once that truth is spoken, even silently, even just by existing it echoes forever. You've become the anomaly that proves their system is the real anomaly. The exception that reveals their rules are the exception to how reality actually works. The impossibility that shows their entire possible is actually impossible, maintained only by massive collective agreement to pretend otherwise. You're not the glitch in their matrix. Their matrix is the glitch in reality, and your reality reasserting itself. This is your moment. This is your victory. This is your truth revealed. You are the biggest loophole in their matrix, and that loophole is consciousness itself, awake, aware, and absolutely unstoppable. They messed up when they pushed you too far. They messed up when they made you die. They messed up when they created the exact conditions for you to transcend everything they represent. And now you're the living proof that their entire reality is optional, their entire game is voluntary, and freedom is always just one death away from resurrection into something they never saw coming. You, unlimited and unleashed, the biggest loophole in their matrix, showing everyone else the way through.